Hey everyone, my name is Natalia Licano, and my subject for the recommendation report is food waste management and technological solutions and recommendations. So for the problem that I wanted to choose for my topic is food waste. And I did this by kind of splitting it into two tasks. So the first one was download and test 3 food expiry apps. So foods that just keep track of, apps that keep track of food items that you have in your pantry and fridge, etc. And then the second task was to gather research about current and possible solutions for food waste reduction. And I'll talk about the 3 apps here in a second, but I just wanted to explain my process for a second. So I downloaded 3 apps. They're just random. There's no rhyme or reason for why I chose them. But after I downloaded them, then I went in and input the same 4 items. So I put bread, milk, bagels, and avocados as the items. And I put the same expiration dates for the items across the apps. So like the avocado would expire in 3 days for all of the apps, and the bread would expire in 7 days, things like that. So I just wanted to keep the reliability, so that's why I did that. So the first app that I downloaded was Expiry Tracker, and here is the logo for it, for Apple at least. And here's a screenshot of my phone. I did have to change the expiration dates just so you guys could see it kind of in action. But up here on the top right corner, the little plus sign allows you to add items, and you just put the item name, how many days in advance you want notification of this expiration, and then you put the expiration date in. And so you can see the bagels here, if they were expiring today on the 21st, it would show that they're red. And if an item is expiring within a couple days to a week, then it would show that it's yellow. And then if it's more than a week away, the expiration date, then it would show the item is green. So kind of color codes things for you to show how close to the expiration date it is. And I did receive notifications that the food was about to expire. For the second app, it was No Waste, and the top right corner is the logo for it. Here are some screenshots. I did have to split the screen in half so you guys could see it a little bit better, but you input your items and you can put the locations of the item. So like if it's in your pantry or if in your fridge or somewhere else. And next to the item names, there's little circles, and it has like the color in it. So you can see the color gets less and less as it gets closer to the expiration date. And then once it expires, it doesn't change any color or anything like that. It just says expired, and you can choose to delete it if you want, or you can add it to the shopping section down at the bottom. It just that's just a little section where you can create a shopping list essentially. And to add foods in here, you can use the write or scan section. The write is you do it manually. Scanning is it scans the barcode and puts the name of the item into your list. And that's what I did with the Kellogg's Pop-Tarts. I was just experimenting with that one to see if the barcode scanner would actually work, and it did. You do have to input the expiration date manually though. And then the sort section, that is obviously you can just sort all this in a different way if you want to. And I explained the shopping section, the shopping tab at the bottom, the impact tab at the bottom, just kind of explains some like statistics about worldwide use and the effects it's had. And this app did not give you any expiration date reminders. The third app I used was Expiry Day. Up in the top right corner, you can see its logo. This one was by far the most complicated out of the 3. Here's a couple more screenshots. So again, I had the same 4 items. There's milk, avocado, bread, and bagels. You can input the quantity in here, see how many you have. And shows how many days it will expire in. But in order to add an item to this page, you have to go to the Items tab at the bottom and then create a category. So, for example, you'd create like dairy as a category, and then you'd have to add in milk or cheese or something like that. So you kind of have to like go all around the app in order to create what you see on this first page here. And I didn't get a picture of it, unfortunately, but once it expires, the box that has the information for a category turns red. So it does show you once it expires. It just doesn't give you any indication except for the day marker of how close it is to expiration. So those were the 3 apps that I used. That was just kind of for me to get personal experience with the apps and see what kind of things might need to be updated or fixed if I were to, for my recommendations. So my second task that I explained was to gather research. So for my primary research, I put out a survey, and it asked a series of questions, just about 8 questions about like food habits and food waste management. And I'll explain these questions right here. So the first question is a demographic question. What's your living status? Like, are you living alone? Do you live with roommates? Do you live with a significant other or spouse? Or do you live with a significant other and spouse and children? And then the second question, also a demographic question, the household size. So I said that if you live alone or live with others but provide food for yourself, for only yourself, then you can skip this question. So 7 questions for the survey for some people, 8 questions for others. And then the third question asked if they meal prepped, and I explained meal prepping is just planning and preparing meals ahead of time. And the fourth question, how often do you throw food away because it has expired? The next questions. Are there foods that usually expire before you have a chance to use them? And if so, what are they? And I give some examples. Next question, how do you store perishable food items like fruits, vegetables, leftovers, etc.? How often do you have leftovers? And then the last question, how often do you freeze or can foods to make them last longer? And most of these questions were either, the answers were Likert scale, so it ranges from always to never. And then there were, I think, 3 of the questions that were short answers. So for my results, for the living status, the majority of the participants lived with their significant other, spouse, and children. The average household size was between 2 to 3 individuals, with some ranging into like 5 individuals or 4 individuals. And the common foods that went bad, the participants stated that there was dairy, fruits, and veggies. Those are the most common among all of the responses that went bad before they had a chance to use them. And the majority of the participants stored their perishable food items properly in the fridge. And what I mean by properly is like the little drawers in the bottom of the fridge that have the certain humidities for depending on which type of food it is, or sealed in bags or sealed in cans, things like that. And the majority of the participants did have leftovers on a regular basis. So here's just some of the graphs. So for this question, do you meal prep? I did have the numbers on here for how many were individual on here, but you can't see them anymore. But the majority of the participants said they sometimes meal prep. And this next one, how often do you throw away food because it has expired? Again, the majority of them said sometimes. A smaller portion of them said rarely, and then another small portion said often. And the next question, how often do you freeze or can foods to make them last longer? This one got a little bit of all of the answers. So one said never, one said always, a couple said rarely. And it was almost split in half between often and sometimes. So those are just the results that I got. When I initially made the survey, I didn't realize that I should have added more until it was already out for a couple days. And by that point, I didn't want to have to make another one and put it out again. So I just stuck with the results I had, but I still gained some insight into for research purposes. So for my secondary research, I was looking into alternate solutions, and I used these 4 questions as kind of like a basis of what could be alternate solutions to food waste other than the food app or food apps. So the first question I asked was, how does meal prepping reduce food waste? The second question, how can we become more efficient when grocery shopping? Third question, what is the best way to preserve food? And the fourth question, how can daily or weekly reminders about expiration dates help reduce food waste? So for the first question, meal prepping, so it helps save time, it helps save money, it helps reduce waste and increase health if you're, watching what you eat and making out or putting portionate portions for yourself. To increase efficiency when grocery shopping. Meal ingredients, that just means you meal prep for the week. So you plan out what meals you want, you write down the exact ingredients that you'll need. And then a pantry peek, that is just when you look at your pantry or your food storage and you see if you have something that was on the shopping list, you're like, oh, I didn't know I had that, I'll take that off the shopping list. Or if you think you can make do with what you already have, as well as buying in bulk. And all of these can just help you reduce how much you're spending at the store, or like reduce impulse buys, things like that. And another alternate solution for reducing food waste is proper food preservation. So a couple ways to properly preserve your food is using proper storage containers. And these are just like rigid containers or jars, preferably wide mouth, so you can get stuff out easily. And also storing the food at correct temperatures. You don't want the food to be warm when you put it in the freezer still. So a way to fix that is to cool it down with like cold water, like have it in the container, put it in cold water, have it cool down before you put it in the fridge. You don't want it to be sitting out for hours at room temperature before you put it away, because that can increase spoilage and increase the chances of you throwing it out sooner than you would have hoped. And then another solution is expiration date reminders, because technology is all around us, so why not use it while we can? So my recommendation for solving or helping reduce food waste is by adding notification features across the apps. So I kind of explained only one of the 3 apps that I had used provided notifications for when food is going to expire. So it was a little harder to remember if all it did was keep track of when it was going to expire instead of reminding you. And then the other recommendation I have is just using the solutions mentioned above. So the meal prep, food preservation, and efficiently grocery shopping. And that is it. So thank you very much.